This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 402. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
Yeah, recording on April Fools here, and joke's on us, because Montana has said, it's not April, it's still January. I don't know about you, man. I hope you're not a human popsicle. We're in the middle of a blizzard. This is stupid. Very frustrating.
It is also snowing outside on April 1st, and the bummer about recording on April 1st is that we can't really drop any legit April Fool's jokes, because by the time the show comes out, it won't be April 1st anymore, and then people won't get it, and it'll just come across as dumb, although arguably a lot of the cool April Fool's jokes have, I don't know, there's not very many of them.
No, there usually isn't. It's not a holiday I'm a huge fan of, by the way, April Fools.
No, I've never been that much of one either. And I think because most of the April Fool's gags that people try and pull end up coming across as mean, and then that's not fun.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, Brandon, I mean, are the Seahawks pulling April Fool's jokes with some of these offseason moves here so far, or are you liking them? How are you feeling about free agency? We haven't really talked about it. Me and you just one-on-one for a while here. Just kind of curious where that's at.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there were a move that they made that if the news came out on April Fool's Day, would I believe it or not? And I think the biggest one to me is the Bobby Wagner coming home. Like, if that would have come out on April Fool's, I would say, no, I don't like this. This is a mean-spirited joke, and I don't like you trying to pull this on me. But instead, Bobby Wagner's coming back to the Seahawks, and it's a legit actual thing that's happening. And the contract, initially, we heard like $7 million, and it comes out that it's a $5.5 million deal for 1 year with $1.5 million in incentives, which that incentive amount doesn't count toward the salary cap for this upcoming season. So $5.5 million, that's about the number where I thought, hey, if Bobby would be willing to come back for this number, then great. And it turns out he is. So great deal.
Yeah, I think it's win-win for everybody. I think Bobby kind of went around the league, and he was looking for either an opportunity that he felt like could get him another ring pretty easily and get paid, to a level that is more than a little less than mid-tier, because that's basically what this contract is, right? And probably didn't find it, or he did find something that just didn't intrigue him. And he was like, hey, man, I'd rather be home at this number than away at another number. So ding dong, Wagner is dead. No more 45 on the Rams. I'm so happy about that. I'd never want to see that ever again.
No, I'm glad to get him out of that uniform, put that part of his career behind him. And
what part?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, no, me neither.
There's a lot of moves that have come up since we recorded our last flagship show. I mean, we've seen free agency. We've seen the quarterback sign, Geno Smith, obviously coming back, but Drew Lock coming back too. So another portion of this is out as the Seahawks make their rounds throughout this offseason at all the different pro days, whether it's CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young. They've gone to all of these pro days. They've taken selfies with many of these quarterbacks. But Drew Lock back in a Seahawks uniform, $4 million cap hit for this upcoming season. And some people thinking that $4 million for Lock as a backup is an overpay.
That's interesting. I would say it's a fine amount. That's not a huge amount of money. It really isn't, especially at the QB position.
Yeah.
What would a quarterback at 5 cost you with the rookie pay scales? It's something like $6 million. So, if you were to pick him at 5,
right.
So Locke is still a better value than that. And I still think he has a ton of upside, and it's a nice hedge against Geno having the struggles this year. If he does come out and underperform compared to last year, you've got a guy that they obviously saw enough of him throughout practice and training camp and everything throughout the season to think, yeah, we could roll with this guy if we need to. He can put it together. We like what we see here. And I get it. He has a lot of arm talent, and he's a guy that has the type of upside that you think you could develop in a skill set that is better than I think most people give him credit for.
I think the interesting thing, though, is that he comes in at $4 million. Geno Smith going into the 2022 season was at $3.5 million. So I guess if you adjust for inflation, it's about the same amount. But I don't know, maybe that's just what the market is for a quarterback who kind of has some upside, and it doesn't stop them from going out and drafting a quarterback if that's what they decide to do with any of their picks, because what we talked about in one of the things that you brought up in a recent show was just how Geno Smith's contract compares to Matt Flynn's of 2012, right? When they had Tavares Jackson on the roster and Matt Flynn, and then they drafted Russell Wilson. And you saw what happened with that. They were fine moving on from Jackson, and they rolled with Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson.
Absolutely. No, it's not a crippling deal by any stretch of the imagination. And it's funny, say $3.5 million adjusted for inflation, maybe close to $4 million. I think you're way off on that. I think $3.5 million adjusted for inflation this year is probably closer to what, 50 million, something like that with all the inflation. But yeah, I think the Lock coming in.
How's Drew Lock supposed to buy eggs on a $4 million salary?
I don't know, man. I don't know. He's going to have to go out. He's going to have to go out and, maybe get a side hustle or something like that. Especially with the Seahawks supposedly going around and wooing all the, highly touted college quarterbacks that are about to come out. Boy, it's silly season, man. I hate, how much I hate this time of year and how much I hate offseason hype, man. And boy, it is out of control. It is through the roof, so to speak, much like Richardson and Levis throwing footballs into the roof, which is mind-blowing, like be blown away.
Yeah. Try throwing a football over the mountains and we'll see if you hit my radar.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we can all say for sure, Uncle Rico, he'd go number one in this draft if he was available.
I like it in the sense that it's fun. And I think that that's the part that Pete and John are leaning into, because for one, they're in a position they're not normally in, and they can decide whether or not they're actually messing with people or if they're enjoying the prospect of maybe actually taking a quarterback if they choose to do that, or if they decide to try and throw some kind of smoke screen that makes it look like they're trading up for a quarterback, but maybe trading up for a defensive prospect instead. There's so many different ways they could go. It seems, I know what I feel is the most likely, but I think that's also part of this process is to have them kind of explore these things and because they'd be doing it anyway. To see if they could move up and which teams they could move up with and how much it would cost, because I think that's all part of the John Schneider process of trying to figure out who's going to go where so that when they get to draft day, they have an idea of generally who's coming off the board where. And it seems like he's been pretty good at it.
He has. And I don't blame Pete and John for taking a victory lap and having some fun with the number 5 pick. Like you said, they haven't been there before in a very long time. And, one of the arguments for maybe going after one of these guys is they may never be there again for a very long time. And I would say if you can predict 3 years from now where the Seahawks will be in terms of where they'll be drafting, you, my friend, should get a 1-900 number and start charging people a lot of money because you are clairvoyant like Miss Cleo. But I think it would be a massive mistake if they drafted a quarterback at 5, let alone move up to 3. Are you kidding me? Like the overpay that would be done there would be just enormous. And even let's say they're not going for quarterback and they're trying to move up to 3. Why in the world would the Cardinals help out the Seahawks? Can you imagine what the price would have to be if you are, let's say the positions were reversed.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals are coming at the Seahawks and being like, we need to get to 3. If you're the Seahawks in that position, you would ask for beyond the moon and the stars. It's a division rival.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So it's just not going to happen.
The only thing that I could think of, though, would be that if you're really throwing out this smoke screen that you're going to take quarterback, the Cardinals believe that the Seahawks are going to take a quarterback, and so that they're willing to go from 3 to 5 and still think that they have the best defensive players still on the board, because at that point they feel that it's going to go 1 through 4 quarterbacks, then you take a defensive player and one of their guys that they want is off the board. I could see Arizona making that move as long as they knew they liked 2 defensive prospects and the Seahawks were willing to give up the best offer in terms of draft picks. I don't think that them being a rival stops it from happening just based on that. They're going to want to feel like they fleeced the Seahawks somehow and still got their guy and then got extra picks. And I think that that's the competitive part that they would take away from it.
I'm just saying, let's say it was, I don't know, just pick a team. I think the Jags at 3. Okay. Yeah. The price for 3 is going to be lower than it is with the Cardinals. Like, you're just going to pay, you always pay a premium to move up. Now you're going to pay an extra, screw you, you're in the division tax. Right. For what? For a guy in really, other than Stroud, who I think his ceiling is Warren Moon. That's what he looks like when he plays. Hey. He throws such a pretty ball, on point. Everybody talks about Richardson's arm strength, and they talk about Levis's arm strength and all that. Stroud's arm strength is right up there, if not better than, I would even say, Levis. Turn on the tape. There's a ton of throws of him being on the far hash, which is even further in college football, right? Because the hashes are wider, and throwing a 15, 20 yard out to the opposite side of the field. And it's on a rope. Those are NFL throws. Now you go and you look at Levis, Richardson, Hooker, Bryce Young. You don't see a lot of those throws on the rest of their tape. I think probably, if not for the ACL, I think Hendon Hooker would easily be the number 2 quarterback in this draft. Even playing in that funky, weird Josh Heupel offense that's almost impossible to evaluate. He's just super whippy with the ball, has good arm strength, and is really accurate and can stand in the pocket and take a hit. Plus, he's actually mobile.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at Levis, he's not very mobile. I mean, he's mobile enough-ish. Okay. It's not going to be the same in the pros compared to the college. And Levis's decision-making and his deep ball are a disaster. They just are. Now, maybe you can fix that. Some people will say you can. He's more like a Derek Carr type of quarterback to me. Somebody who can zip it around the field, in between the hashes. He's great at throwing slants and bubbles. He's great at it. Yeah, I mean, he zips it out there, but watch his deep ball. They almost all tail off. The receiver has to slow up, and it's a 50-50 ball every time. He has no touch. And then you look at Bryce Young, who has a noodle arm. One of the things that made me laugh the hardest throughout evaluating quarterbacks this year was watching one of the games, and it was just every throw, right? That's how I like to go back and look at him.
Yeah.
And he kind of rolls out to his left and he throws about a 7-yard touchdown. And, he zips it in there a little bit, but dude's right in front of him. And the announcer, whoa, any concerns about the arm strength now? I'm like, yeah, all of them. Like, he can't throw it hardly, more than 15, 20 yards. It's just, it dies on him every single time. And he throws at least 4 or 5 balls a game that are NFL picks.
Yeah.
Like, those are where you're just like, ooh, that's a dangerous throw, and gets away with it in college because the competition is lesser, and has so many panic throws where he's getting rushed up the middle, where he starts to just like backpedal and he just chucks it up for grabs. He does it all the time. He's terrifying. He's so much lesser Tua. So when you look at all these guys, what I'm getting at is, other than Stroud, they're just not top 5 quarterbacks. And Richardson's all over the map, right? He's an athlete, amazing at it. I give him all the props for testing well and being a big guy and all that stuff. But he just doesn't play quarterback. He's not good at it at all. Like, he has zero craft. He's got all the tools and none of the craft. And maybe you can teach him that. I don't know. But history says that most likely not. So don't draft one there. If they want to get one of these guys in the 2nd or 3rd, I'm good with it.
Well, I want to go back to one of the things that you said, because the argument is, well, the Seahawks normally aren't in this spot. So why not take a flyer on a position on one of these top guys if they're available there at 5? The interesting thing about the argument that I find is that they're the same people who are down on Geno Smith. And so the idea of the Seahawks not being back at 5 then is hinged on the argument that, well, Geno's not a top quarterback anyway. If he's not a top quarterback, then the chances are you will be back in this position, because then the Seahawks won't win very many games. If you think that last year was a flash in the pan and the second half of the season is more indicative of the type of Geno Smith that you're going to get going forward. So it's weird to me that those two arguments seem to pair together.
Sure. And let's say it is closer to the second half of the season, Geno. Where would that kind of rank him in the NFL today? Probably what? Right around dead nuts average?
Probably.
Maybe a little better?
Yeah.
I can say with about 80% certainty that he's going to be at least that. At least that. Now, look at any of the guys that I talked about other than Stroud. I can't say with more than maybe 20% certainty that any of those guys are going to be at least that good. Like I said, Levis's ceiling, that's like Derek Carr. I mean, he plays just like Derek Carr. I think Hooker, maybe. Yeah, sure. It's going to take him a while to heal. He's got to learn a real NFL offense. I think that's going to take some time. So am I certain about that? Not really. Maybe like 30% certain. Bryce Young, I'm about 2% certain on. And he's going to be he's Seneca Wallace. He's much closer to Seneca Wallace than Russell Wilson. I have no problems with his height. It's everything else in his game. I don't care for it.
I talked to Brent Taylor recently because he is a Seahawks fan, but he covers Alabama football on SB Nation. He's the editor of the SB Nation site. And hearing from him, his evaluation of Bryce Young and some of the comparisons to Russell Wilson, just the parts of Young's game that correlate both positively and negatively. Yeah, just hearing that from him was enough to make me say, okay, yeah, the Seahawks, they're not going to go there.
No, I mean, he's better outside the pocket than in, just like Russ, only he's half the athlete. So I think it's tough. Russ had, especially early in his career, more quick burst, some more sack to his game, right? Short area quickness,
right?
Than Bryce Young has. So, but the point being is, you look at all those guys. I mean, we're talking about scratch offs and lottery tickets, right? And so then you get to Richardson, like 30% chance that he puts it together. I think that's being generous. It's got to be just dead perfect for it all to work out for a guy like that. And so why am I trading the now, where I've got a guy that I'm 80% sure can be at least a mid-tier quarterback in the NFL today and tomorrow, for a lottery ticket of 30% that he might be that good or better? It's just, the probability is so low. And then people come back and they say, well, who would you take instead? I don't honestly care, because whoever it is that John and Pete have decided is the best player available on the board at that point, which will be most likely not a quarterback, go get him. Just go get him, or trade back and stockpile picks, whatever it is. But there's no point in wasting this opportunity right now by taking a quarterback at 5 or even higher. I just think it's lunacy.
When you're picking top 5 and you take quarterbacks out of the mix, your opportunity to go and find a player who is a legit blue chip talent in the NFL for years and years, it increases quite a bit. I mean, you can go back through, we could even start in 2018, because that's about the time to where you can see if guys are Pro Bowl caliber type players based on their time over the NFL, right? And take out the quarterbacks from the 2018 draft, who were Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. You've got Saquon Barkley, Denzel Ward, and Bradley Chubb, all Pro Bowl talent at their positions. 2017, Myles Garrett, Solomon Thomas, who didn't really work out for the Niners, Leonard Fournette, who he's stayed in the league, but
has a chip, playoff Lenny,
right?
He's at least been a serviceable, good starter, right?
Yeah,
for the majority of his career.
And then Corey Davis, who has been, maybe underwhelming in terms of his draft position, but still a talented wide receiver. Jamal Adams, number 6. So, yeah, that's the 2017 draft. 2016, the quarterbacks that went were Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, but then you've got Joey Bosa, Zeke Elliott, Jalen Ramsey.
Yes,
you can see in terms of talent, generally outside of the quarterbacks, you're going to find a guy who you would hope to be with the team long term. And when you're talking about that evaluation and trusting the team, these are teams that were bad teams, but they still could evaluate outside of the quarterback spot well enough to find the guys who are among the top at their position. It gets less difficult at that point.
For sure. It increases your odds on the scratch off ticket, right? And look at overall the GMs in the league, how they perform when it comes to selecting quarterback. It's 50-50 at best. That's being generous, I think. Now, tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know any of that stuff, and there's no way that I could be better at looking at quarterbacks than GMs. Go ahead. You can say that all you'd like. I encourage you to go back and find it in the archives. I've done this, 5, 6, 7, 8 years where I've gone through the quarterbacks, and I'd say my success rate is probably closer to 80%. Feel pretty good about it. I'm actually good at that. I think that most GMs are at least 80% on all the other dudes when it comes to selecting at the top of the draft, whereas I'd be god awful at that. That's stuff that I'm not good at. So why not pick in a position where you do well? And John Schneider can do that. Now, that's not to say they haven't done well at quarterback, obviously. Really stoked about Russ, really stoked about Geno.
They haven't taken that many chances, though. When you're trying to figure out a percentage, there's just not a lot of swings. And the swings that they have taken were like 7th round. And really, where have they taken quarterback apart from free agency swings? 7th round, Russell Wilson. Just not a lot when it comes to the draft. And it makes me wonder, too, you talk about your trust. What if John Schneider, and through their meetings, then they say, Anthony Richardson, because he's the one guy that I feel like is the wild card that could go anywhere from number 2 to, who knows, maybe he slides all the way to the bottom half of the first round. I think it could happen, but just based on the athletic traits, I think that's what has everybody thinking that he's more likely to go toward the top of the first round than he is toward the bottom of the first round. If John Schneider and Pete Carroll, if they see enough to where they say, hey, a lot of the traits are there. He's young. He has all this crazy athletic talent that we can work with. It might take a year, but
a year?
Okay. Maybe 2 years.
2?
But we can get him to the point to where he's legit.
Maybe. It might just be because he is athletic. This is the problem, right? So if you look at Richardson in the totality of him as a prospect, what does he do well? What's impressive? What is the plus side? He jumps real high. He runs real fast.
Yeah.
He throws the ball real hard. And then, okay, so that's fine. Workout warrior stuff. So what's not good? Literally everything else.
He put up 400 yards against Tennessee last year.
Wonderful. Look, he's not going to be Cam Newton as early as Cam Newton was. And Cam Newton was, a meteor and then straight back down. Everybody was right about Cam Newton. He was terrible at points in his career, and he was an MVP for a year. He had the 1 year where he could put it all together.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where Anthony Richardson could go in terms of his talent and everything. But one of the things that John Schneider talked about a ton when they drafted Russ. Oh, you turn on the tape, he tilted the field. He used that phrase many, many times.
Right.
And there's only one quarterback in this draft against top competition in big time spotlights that went out there and tilted the field. And that's CJ Stroud. He's the only one in this draft.
I'm glad you didn't say like Stetson Bennett or something.
Yes, that's a bit, yeah. But you get what I'm after here in terms of these top guys. I mean, we could talk about the lower tier prospects at some point and all that. Maybe we will on a future show. But
yeah,
as far as Richardson, the hype train of this time of year is what's pushing him up the draft board, along with desperation in some teams' minds. Don't draft out of a position of desperation. And some will say, well, you're not doing that because you have Geno, but you're desperate because, well, when am I ever going to be here again? How am I ever going to get a quarterback again? That's desperation. I think it's a terrible idea.
I think where a lot of that comes into play too are teams with bad owners and general managers who can't stand up to the owners, because the owners will buy into this cycle of media hype and say, hey, you hear they're talking about this Anthony Richardson guy as being, somebody who could be the next Patrick Mahomes. And so then the general manager starts thinking, well, shoot, if I want to keep my job, I want to keep the owner happy, and the owner really likes this guy, and so maybe we should look at him a little bit more. And I think that ends up playing into some of these organizations that end up making these moves. And we haven't seen the Seahawks really be influenced by that, because ownership hasn't been, they don't apply that kind of pressure, I think, that some other organizations do.
Yeah. Pressure from the top from a guy that, like a David Tepper or somebody like that, a more knee-jerk owner. Absolutely. I could see how that could be difficult, especially if you buy into the hype. And this is all hype around Richardson, if you really look at his tape. Now, I can remember last year when Willis had his pro day. And at the end of that, do you remember how much higher we're at peak Richardson hype? This is right after his pro day. That's when you get your peak hype on that prospect, especially at the QB position in a pro day.
Yep.
Pro days I can understand that you might get some information about how he interacts, the prospect, with other teammates and coaches and although I don't even know if you get that anymore, because they're also coached up and they know what the moment is. But in terms of them as a player, I don't know what you take out of that. I mean, look at Richardson's pro day, and you'll see a couple nice throws, and then you're going to see a ton of throws where the product placement is awful. It's really bad. I don't know how many different times, especially on the deep ball, the receiver's either stopping short or it's overthrown, or the tight throws to the sidelines. The receivers are having to jump way out and stretch way out to try to make that catch. This is in shorts against air. Then you look at him against actual competition, it gets even worse. Now take that and put it in the NFL. It's going to get even worse, at least initially, for at least a few years. He's a nice kid by all accounts, a hard worker, all that stuff. So I don't want to compare him personality-wise to this player and character-wise, but physical traits-wise, it's Jamarcus Russell 2.0 to me.
Yeah.
Very little experience, all the tools in the world, can throw it to Mars, all that stuff. And it's all hyped out of his pro day. I mean, the gimmicks at the pro day. Last year it was it last year or the year before, Zach Wilson with the hip flip and the big long throw? Oh, it got me too. That one got me. That one got me. But
2 years ago.
Yeah. This year it's he hit the ceiling with the football gimmick. Johnny Manziel comes out. It's he wore a helmet at his pro day gimmick. I mean, the Kyle Bowler back in his draft day, throwing it through the uprights from his knees from the 50. Woo! Yeah, that gimmick. They're gimmicks. The whole thing is a gimmick. I just can't get on board with the Richardson thing. I really can't.
The one gimmick that's still impressive to me are the guys who can jump out of the swimming pool. Like, if you can do that, I still think that's athletically impressive.
Look, what I'm saying here is everything that Richardson has put out in the combine and the pro day and all that stuff, I'm not saying it's not athletically impressive.
Yeah.
But that's not quarterback. Quarterback is not just being an athlete. This isn't the end. It is listen to Dilfer and Steve Young and a lot of these guys who really know what they're talking about, whether it's Kurt Warner, go down the list. One of the Palmer brothers, I don't care who you ask. They talk about quarterback as a craft. there's so much more that goes into it than running, jumping, throwing. Like the mentals of it is really where it's at. I'm not saying that he's a dumb guy and he can't figure it out. He's just so far. He's so much closer to Trey Lance than he is Cam Newton, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, where he's ahead of a guy like Malik Willis, who played against Liberty-style competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And Willis is smaller and not quite as fast and all the stuff, right? Like he's a knockoff version of Anthony Richardson. I just find it interesting how many people have gotten sucked in. And that's why when I put out the video yesterday about this, I may have came in a little hot because when I woke up in the morning and I started seeing the hyped up news headlines, you know how much that just drives me insane. Maybe drank a little too much coffee, but the fact remains, like, it's stupid. The whole conversation about it in terms of taking it actually seriously, I find to be preposterous.
There's other aspects of it too that bother me, and I'm going to get to that in my do better. But we have a lot more to talk about in terms of positions that the Seahawks went in terms of free agency. Quarterback is a big part of this, again, because they have that top 5 pick and they are in the mix. So it's interesting to see where they could go if they're, and how much of this really is a smoke screen and how much of it is really putting a solid evaluation on these guys because they don't want to miss on that opportunity if it happens to be there. So they definitely want to do this. It sounds like Pete Carroll, in terms of his pro days, the quarterback spots were the ones that he was going to go to. And there was an interview with him where he talked about, he's done with the pro days for now and checking out the quarterbacks. And
I to piggyback on what you're saying, the whole QB discussion does affect, everything else in the draft and what else they might do in free agency and the whole thing. So it all trickles down. And also too, with the top 30 visits and stuff, you see him looking at a lot of safeties. What does that mean with the rescinding of the restricted free agency tag on Ryan Neal?
Yeah.
Like that hurt my feelings.
I know.
Like, I didn't like that at all because like I said previously, I think he's one of the most underrated players in all the NFL. I find that to be a little perplexing. It's almost like the Al Woods move.
Yeah. There's been a couple moves where I don't quite, I guess I just don't have quite that great of an understanding of why they wouldn't retain, maybe a guy like Marquise Goodwin, who ended up going to the Browns. Why Ryan Neal? For one, I thought it was odd that they put just an original round tender on Ryan Neal, which only gave them right of first refusal when it came to contract negotiations. So somebody could say, hey, Ryan, we're going to give you this contract. And the Seahawks would say, okay, we're not going to match that. And generally, they haven't had any of those situations where they end up matching a contract. So it's saying that, we want to keep you, but we're only willing to go to like a relatively small contract number to keep you. And so the fact that they rescinded it, he's now a free agent and he can go sign with another team. I don't know if that helps him in any way, because at least having that tag on you says, well, the team wants you.
Yeah, it does. And now also the fact that there was never a contract to match, that tells you that nobody else really did want him, at least for that price, which I thought was a pretty reasonable one. I can't remember what it was, but it was somewhere around
1.2 million, I think.
Yeah. So nothing crazy. Clearly the Julian Love signing, that plays a factor into this. I mean, he can do all the Ryan Neal things and maybe better. I'm not a Julian Love expert. I have hope that he could be that guy. And I think it's also interesting. You heard Pete this last week talk about, he was asked about Adams, and he was pretty emphatic. Like, no, we're not moving on from Jamal Adams. Like we're in on Adams still. And they were going to meet with him at the end of this last week. So they meet with Jamal. And shortly after that meeting, that's when Ryan Neal has his restricted tag rescinded. So that tells me that after they got with Jamal Adams to see his progress, where he's at, all that stuff, they felt really good about it, because Ryan Neal was a little bit of Jamal Adams insurance. And now maybe that's Julian Love.
Yeah, I feel like Julian Love is more Kobe Bryant insurance if he fails to improve. Because I think he can kind of play that similar nickel style position. And so I guess that's where I saw him. I still see Ryan Neal as more of the Jamal Adams insurance. And so maybe you're right. Maybe that's they saw enough of the progress there that they didn't feel like they needed to tag him. Now, he could still be welcome to come back under a free agent contract signing, which would be even smaller than the one that he would have been on with the restricted free agent or with the tender amount. So that stinks for him, but there's got to be somebody. There's got to be a team out there that's willing to give Ryan Neal more snaps.
Yeah, there's got to be one. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there has to be one, and he's still relatively young as well.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that the Julian Love thing means that he's more in the slot and that kicks Kobe more outside. I think he's going to be better there than he was in the slot. I just don't think he has the athleticism and the quickness to play the slot. I think that's going to always be a struggle for him.
Competition with Michael Jackson would be, and it wouldn't be just Michael Jackson. It would also be Trey from Oklahoma.
Yep.
So they're going to have
whoever they bring in the draft. I mean, they could go corner with one of these first round picks too, with one of the high end corners. That's a great place to spend a first round pick. I'm not a corner expert. I have a hard time evaluating that, but there's got to be one of them that somebody feels really good about in this draft, if not two or three. And you talk about saving money, getting a premium position like corner on the cheap up to 5 years. Holy smokes, that would be pretty cool. And I wouldn't be mad at that. Is there, with the free agency moves that we're talking about here and some of the draft stuff we've been talking about, is there a draft move right now that would send you to the moon at all? For me, it'd just be picking the quarterback at 5 or higher. That would be the one thing that would really anger me.
Yeah.
But everything else that they could do going forward here, I'm kind of cool with it. You guys tell me, John, you know what's up. I trust you.
I think the one that would be the biggest head scratcher for me would be if they went one of the tackle spots with their first pick, because you've already got your 2 starting tackles and you're pretty good there. They've brought in some tackles that, I think it was one of the kids from Ohio State who played right tackle. Yeah, DeJuan Jones, who has the potential, top 5 tackle in the draft, right? But if they're looking at him toward the bottom of the first round, what
put
would
him at guard and sign me up.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. Awesome.
He's huge for a guard, though. He's like 6'8".
The Jones and Lucas, those are maulers, man.
Yeah,
those are maulers.
Going tackle though that early, it would be more of a head scratcher for me. I'd even,
as long as they can shift them to guard, then I'm okay. Whatever
right.
prospect,
and
right?
And you would have to think that they're going to be, because generally when you're talking positional value, the head scratching things are when you project a guy to a new position and that new position is guard. You just don't see a lot of guards taken inside the top 10 unless you really have a conviction that they're, future Hall of Fame guard.
Yeah. No, that would be tough if they took one of those dudes with the first rounder, right? Or some combination if they trade back or whatever it is. But, around 20, sure, man, I'm good with it, because one of the things I've been kind of going back and forth with in the comments on this last video that I put out about the quarterback thing, Kansas City won this championship not just because of Mahomes and his magic. I'm not trying to take a thing away from that gutty performance. It was amazing. Good job, Mahomes. You could argue that Hurts outplayed him in that Super Bowl. The reason why the Kansas City Chiefs won that ring is their offensive line was able to hold off a really good Philly defensive line.
Yeah.
That championship was won and lost in the trenches, and their defensive line was able to slow down the Eagles' run game enough to get them out of whack. That's how they won that game. So to me, if you're going to spend a premium draft pick on anything in the trenches with some huge human, sign me up all day long.
So they bring in Evan Brown, who really is only a $2 million cap hit, who has experience playing center, has experience playing guard. To me, $2.2 million is backup level money. If they were to decide and go center and guard, and maybe it's a tackle converted to guard in 2 out of their first 3 picks, I'd be okay with it.
I'd be
top offensive line talent, and you have depth with a guy like Evan Brown, or who could start if one of these guys,
and Phil Haynes
is depth too. That, like, you're talking, yeah. And if you got the kid from Ohio State, a guy who could maybe play tackle if he wasn't if you had an injury there and he had to bump out to tackle and bring in, Phil Haynes. So that gives you that kind of flexibility on the offensive line that then also accounts for injuries, and you're giving Geno Smith a ton of protection. I wouldn't be mad about it. There's still questions on the defense, but
how do you ensure your investment in Geno?
Yeah.
You protect him up front and you make the defense better. Both those things are going to make Geno better, because if the defense is improved, let's take that aspect of it, and they're not having to try to just full on outscore dudes every single week, that puts Geno in his comfort zone, right? The one thing that I think we both have a little bit of reservation with Geno is the clutchiest of moments. Can he be the guy, more times than not?
Right.
And we've seen him do it a little bit. We've also seen him fail a little bit. So the jury is still out. Mm-hmm. You could convince me either way, wherever your argument is. But one of the ways to ensure your investment in this contract that you just gave him is to put all the pieces around him to succeed. Shoot, if Brock Purdy can be an injury away from the Super Bowl because they built a really good team around the quarterback position, you cannot convince me you can't do that and more with Geno Smith, who's better than Brock Purdy. And I like Brock Purdy.
So let's take that one step further, because I think at the end of the season, seeing how it played out with the defense, we're like, spend all the draft picks, those first 4 picks, you better be on defense.
Okay.
Well, you could argue that they've improved the defense through subtraction of Cody Barton going and signing with the Commanders. They bring in a couple of linebackers, one really good one historically, Bobby Wagner, one guy who Devin Bush, a lot of questions around his health and whether he can bounce back from injury. So there's still question at linebacker. They swap out Quentin Jefferson for Jaron Reed. You lose Shelby Harris, still the status of Poona Ford uncertain.
Al Woods.
Right? Woods, you let him go, and who knows, that could be an age thing with Al, but it does bring up a lot of questions of who is going to end up filling those spots in the future. And maybe you're just looking to go get guys who are average, and you're thinking that those interior spots aren't necessarily that difficult to fill. Sometimes you even see them do it ahead of training camp in August, at the tail end of July. Who's still out there? Let's bring them in. They can fill these spots. In terms of positional value, linebacker and interior defensive line, not really high. You can generally find veterans that can just play the spot and stop the run. That was the strength of that this team was missing. And so I don't think it's that hard to fill necessarily. But where I was going with this was, we were thinking that the defense would be the area of focus if they go 2 offensive linemen, wide receiver 3, and throw in either running back or tight end with that 4th pick. And they go those 4.
I don't understand the tight end discussion. Like, a lot of people say, well, they got to go out and they got to improve at tight end. They don't. That's one that I don't get.
Okay, they don't have to improve at tight end, but because of some of the players in this tight end class, like, you could get a really good tight end likely with a top 50 pick. And I think that's the intriguing part of it. Although, you see guys like Kelsey go at the end of the 2nd round, you see George Kittle go in the 4th round, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The point of the tight end discussion is just that the talent level here is it would allow the team to improve in that area with one of their top 50 picks.
But yeah, so you were getting at it, right? Running back, tight end, 2 D linemen, So you're going down the list. You were up to what, about 5 out of their picks, and how do you allocate like offense, defense? I think that's kind of what you were trying to.
Well, I'm
saying,
at. What if you just went offense with the first 4 picks? Like, would you be okay with that at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would be okay. Like I said, I would literally be okay with anything other than drafting anybody other than Stroud high at 5 or above. As far in terms of quarterback, they can do anything else, and I will be more or less on board with their thought process, because I really do think that John and Pete are very good at their jobs. I believe in that. So I wouldn't be that freaked out about it. I do think that the interior of the defensive line, you talked about positional value a little bit. I think traditionally speaking, what most people think is that interior defensive line is a lower value position. I am of the exact opposite thought
unless
process.
You can get somebody who is the interior, Chris Jones type player, which
just take, who would you say is the dead average block eater at nose tackle in the NFL? Maybe Al Woods. Is he a good example?
Sure.
Okay. If they can get him, that sort of player at, round 4, round 5, something like that, then cool. I think they're going to fill that area in the draft. I think that's where a lot of the draft capital is going to go, is interior defensive line. I think at linebacker, they're looking at Bush and going, okay, well, we'll see. We gave him a 1-year deal and he can play there until Jordan's back. I think that's how they see it. They're going to probably add one more. Maybe it's a late round draft pick or undrafted guy or something like that at linebacker. But that does really free you up to do just about anything you'd like throughout the draft. And that's something I think we all agree on, no matter where you want the Seahawks to go, is that they really have created this opportunity to do really anything under the sun, and you're probably going to be okay.
That appears to be what they've been setting themselves up for with a lot of these moves. And shoot, they could still go defense heavy with the first 4 picks. And
sure.
You wouldn't
be mad about that either.
Wouldn't be mad about that either, because you have the edge talent. Would Will Anderson be available at 5? Would Miles Murphy be a guy that you might go for instead, or Tyree Wilson? Jalen Carter was a guy that we've talked about. Or if you're looking toward the middle half of the round or late part of the round, Brian Brzee out of Clemson, who is an interior defender that's not a nose tackle type player, but I think, like you're saying, if you're looking at a guy who just eats up space, you're probably looking at more the 3rd round, 4th round type of guy who is, you're not asking them to rush the passer. You're just asking him to take up multiple blockers. And
exactly, because who are you asking to rush the passer from the interior?
Yeah,
you're asking Draymond Jones. You just paid a boat money. Right. You're asking Jared Reed.
Bringing back Darrell Taylor. Yeah.
Yep. Maybe Alton Robinson, right? Coming back from injury. Those are the guys you're looking at to rush the passer from the interior. So to me, where they do need the big body space eaters to plug into the rotation that maybe aren't necessarily amazing pass rushers, but can hold their own in the run game and then allow the rest of the defense to be fast and flow to the ball. And that would help out somebody like Devin Bush a lot, right? Yeah. Who he struggles when you get bodies on him to shed blocks and things like that. At least he runs in the correct direction most of the time, unlike Barton. So that's probably an upgrade.
Yeah, we just need less guessing at linebacker.
Yeah. I'd be cool if they spent a fair amount of draft capital at corner to really maybe bring in that second guy. I like Mike Jackson, and I think he did a good job this last year overall. But if you can bring in somebody like a Tariq Woolen, or name the big time corner that you could bring in through the draft, that would be amazing, right? You have booking tackles, you have booking corners, you got young guys everywhere. I would love that. That'd be really fun.
Joey Porter Jr. is one of those names. 6'2".
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the top corners on the board. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, Cam Smith from South Carolina. Those are some of those names of the guys that are projected in kind of that top 20 range at cornerback.
There you go. And look, I'd love to hear from some of the listeners too, I mean, email in and that sort of thing. Cause, I'm not good at evaluating those positions. I'd love to hear what other people think in terms of the hierarchy of those guys and who they'd be excited about. So I have a little bit better of an idea of what names to watch throughout the first round. Because I think the other thing we can all agree on, Brandon, is draft day is going to be a ball. Like, it's going to be so much fun. We haven't got to do this in so long.
Man, just the idea of bringing up a cornerback that you can pair with Woolen and have like two of the league's top corners.
Ooh. Young on cheap contracts. Yes, please.
That would be quite the defensive back room. Quandre Diggs, Jamal, Julian Love,
Woolen and Kobe and Mike Jackson as a depth piece and some young stud corner. Yeah. Okay. That sounds pretty neat. I like that. That feels a little LOB, at one point.
You're starting to build that then. Yeah. And then that maybe allows some of if you get the really good coverage guys, right, then that gives the defensive line a little more time to get there. And maybe that's how you end up building that.
Draymond Jones is your Michael Bennett. Nwosu is your Cliff Averill.
Right.
Taylor's you're going to be your wild card, right? Can he really put it all together?
Be your Bruce Irvin? Yeah.
Right. And then you've got Mafe as an amazing backup edge piece or even potential starter. You start going down that list and you just get a little bit going at nose tackle. Oh boy, this defense could be a huge difference this year.
See what happens when you take quarterback out of the picture for that number 5 player and the options that it gives you, whether offensively or defensively. It seems to change things quite a bit.
I think it's a bigger impact for this team over the next 3 years. I think one of the fundamental places where I get in disagreement with people regarding the quarterbacks early and that sort of thing, and you're not ever going to be here again, and this guy could be here for 10 years and all that stuff. If you're thinking of team building in 10-year spurts at this point, then you are living in 2003, because it's not the way the league works anymore with all the player movement and, with guys being released and moved around because you can replace them on the cheap through the draft, through the rookie wage scale and all that stuff. There's always guys you can go and find if you've got a little cap space. And then, you really try to build through the draft. And so if that's the case and the player turnover is as high as it is these days, and it's definitely more so, even for star players. Look, Lamar Jackson could be wearing a different uniform next year. With that said, you need to be thinking as if it's a college program. These are 3 to 4 year windows that you're building. You're not building 10-year windows anymore. That's not today's NFL. And that's not the way that I think most GMs think anymore. So, yeah,
it's not even the way that the players think. They a lot of them would rather take a 1 or 2 year deal of guaranteed money versus having the 5-year deal to where they get paid a bunch in their 4th and 5th year, but then they never see it.
Darrelle Revis just called and he said, yeah, I did that. And I am a rich man now because of it. He took 1-year deals time and time again, and he made a buttload of cash betting on himself.
Kirk Cousins, another one of those guys, right? Who made a boatload of money just saying, I only want guaranteed money.
Okay. I mean, if you can get it, hats off, man. But because we all know that NFL teams, they're not super excited about the idea of fully guaranteed contracts. But yeah, I just, again, like you said, you take quarterback out of the mix in terms of an early pick. Like, even if they pick, like I said, I wouldn't be mad. 2nd round down. Like, I would not be upset about that if that's the way you want to go. You take that out of the mix, and all of a sudden, the possibilities are truly endless and extremely exciting, because the Seahawks are about 4 to 5 pieces away, probably 4 pieces away, to being one of the teams you look at in a weaker NFC and go, they could be playing on Super Bowl Sunday. Like, they're legit one of the 5 teams that you look at. I think they're that close.
Yeah, and the team that they have to compete with in the division, they got a lot of great players all over the roster, on defense, on the offensive line, at running back, at wide receiver, a lot of depth on the San Francisco 49ers. But who's their quarterback? They bring in Sam Darnold, which has me believe that they aren't even sold on Trey Lance as being the backup going into next season. So if the guy that they picked at number 3 a couple seasons ago still isn't in that mode to where they think that he could be ready to take over in case Brock isn't ready to go week 1 of the season, that they would roll with Sam Darnold. I think that, and you know what? Darnold would probably be okay in that offense. Like, he could probably operate.
Exactly. He can be a bottom tier starter that just gets you through. And I think that's all they're trying to do, is just get through until Purdy's healthy again, whenever that's going to be. Maybe it's by week 1. I don't know. Maybe it takes, more time than that. It's an unusual injury for a quarterback in football. We haven't seen it a lot. I know we've seen it in other sports and things like that. So especially for a guy who had just enough arm strength to be a very effective quarterback, which I liked out of the draft. I was like, yeah, no, he can spin it. Like, no, it's not a hose, but he gets it where it needs to go. I wonder how that's affected. But yeah, it's clear that the Niners are like, yeah, Trey Lance, oops, screwed that one up. Like,
they still think that he has time to develop. He's still under contract through his rookie contract. And
so think about it in these terms. Like, so people are talking a lot about guys sitting in all that if the Seahawks were to draft a guy, right? You start getting 2-3 years removed from playing football, like on the regular, it's usually not good for guys. That's usually tough. We'll see how it works out for Jordan Love over in Green Bay. Obviously, it worked out good for Rodgers, and that used to be the plan. But I think when you start getting guys sitting for extended, especially when you're injured and you can't be working on your craft like Lance has been, and especially with his lack of experience to begin with, I think he's in a real dangerous spot. He needs to go somewhere where he can get some work like now. I don't know where that is, but obviously the Niners are
XFL's going on right now.
He's probably more than an XFL talent, but I don't know. I mean, maybe that's better for his deal. Like when Kurt Warner went to World League, right? Played overseas in Europe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better for your deal.
Better to go and just dominate and play NFL quarterback, and at least in terms of style and playbook. Yeah.
Yeah. And just get some reps under your belt, man. But by bringing in Darnold, I think that's a clear indication that they're like, yeah, he ain't it. And he's probably not going to be it.
Yeah. The thing about that, though, is that an NFL team isn't going to allow a guy like that, who's a top 5 pick, to say, oh, yeah, go play, to where you could go get hurt then playing in some other league. And then you don't have that quarterback. But ultimately, it might even be better for him developmentally. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird spot to where they don't have, it's not like the NBA and the G League, right? To where they're kind of owned by the franchises to where they can go and work on their game.
Well, it doesn't even have to be a developmental league. Like, let's say the Colts draft Hooker, okay, with their top pick. I think they're at 4, right? It's going to take a while for him to come back from the ACL. You got Minshew in the fold. Okay, cool. Well, you could trade. What do you think it takes to pick up Trey Lance right now? A 4th? I bet you the Niners would jump on that. 4th or a 3rd?
You think? I don't know. Yeah. They're awfully tight with Jimmy Garoppolo and letting him go anywhere for anything.
He's a lot better than Trey Lance.
Yeah, I suppose.
So there's that. I mean, not that Jimmy's a world beater, but he is a lot better than Trey Lance. So if he could go to a situation like that where, sure, he could compete with Minshew, maybe he beats him out, gets on the field while they're waiting on Hooker, like that would be a great situation for Trey Lance. And who knows, if you're the Colts and you've been playing quarterback roulette for how long now, you throw another lottery ticket at it and say, hey, what if we catch lightning in the bottle here? And you move forward from there with your future in place.
Well, that takes him off the Niners then. I don't know. I don't know if they're that down on him or if they're just, if Darnold is then more insurance, but it feels more like Darnold is the backup plan to Brock than the backup plan to Trey.
Oh, for sure. I think they're all in on Brock Purdy as the guy.
That's the sense that I get.
But hey, I mean, if they hadn't have, drafted Lance right then when were they going to be back there? And how were they going to get a quarterback?
Yeah. Only just to wait till the very last pick in the draft and they have their future franchise guy, right?
Huh. It's almost like if you're good at looking at quarterbacks, you can find them almost every year. At least a serviceable guy.
Sure.
I don't know. It's a crazy thought process.
No, Adam, you have to pick a guy in the top 5, especially if you have a pick in the top 5.
Oh, for sure. For sure. You definitely don't want to build in the trenches and win your ring the way that you win rings. Like, if, for example, people are like, well, you got to do it. You got to go get him right now. Well, how much better were the Bills than the Seahawks this year? They were what, one playoff win more? Okay, cool. Why was that the case? Their offensive line isn't good and they can't run the ball. Like, yeah, I don't care how good. And I think Allen is sensational. I loved him in the draft. I love his game. I think he's stratosphere level. Him and Mahomes, right? But even with that guy, they didn't even sniff the Super Bowl because they weren't good in the trenches.
No, and really when they had the team that you thought that could take them there and could take them over the top, it was when they had that defensive line that they had built because Allen was on his rookie deal. And so they had this incredible defense and they came up just short. And that was really the team I think that they needed to be able to do it with, because now they're going to find themselves in that position to where they're paying so much a quarterback and they're really going to have to hit in the draft then on those positions to be able to stay competitive and be able to get over the top against the Chiefs and Mahomes, who have, as great as Allen is, he's not Mahomes. And so it's kind of that.
I think he's pretty close.
Yeah.
He's close. He's the closest thing going. But yeah, not only do they have to get past Mahomes, but they got to get past Burrow. They've got to get past Herbert. They got to get past. I mean, the AFC's obviously loaded. It makes it tough.
You saw it be difficult for Peyton Manning, right? When it was Brady going every year. Yeah. They were both amazing quarterbacks, but Manning never had the team around him to be able to get past the Patriots, to be able to play in multiple Super Bowls the way Tom was.
Not on the consistent. He did it a couple times, right?
Yeah, a couple times. When they got there and got up against the Bears, they were able to get it done.
Peyton Manning is basically the Karl Malone to Tom Brady's Jordan, but right. He got a couple rings in there.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What do you say we get to the second half of the show?
Heck yeah, bud.
Getting into the second half of the show, and if you're listening along and you haven't checked out some of the new stuff that Adam's doing on YouTube, we've been putting out some of the short clips from different shows. Adam's been doing some short videos as well, covering just topical issues. Check out our YouTube channel, Seahawkers Podcast, and you can go to seahawkerspodcast.com. Click on the YouTube link there, or you can go to youtube.com/Seahawkers Podcast and find all the content there. Make sure you're subscribed. And then that way, if there's anything that you want to get over on YouTube that might not be on the podcast side, you can check it out in both places.
Sure. We're doing lots of different things. It's not just me. And I would very much like to do more, two-man stuff, whether it's me and you and Clinton, like however it works, and Phil and even Wilson, if we can get him back on board now that he's buried at school and everything. There's a lot of exciting stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm still playing with the stuff that I'm trying to do. Haven't nailed it yet. I'm getting there though. But if you do find yourself yearning for a little bit of Seahawkers Podcast content in between flagship shows, we've got a bunch of stuff for you on YouTube. We're trying to get that stuff out there most days.
And I might need some feedback too from people who generally listen through the podcast. Should I be putting out some of the shorter things if it's over, I don't know, a certain amount of time? Or because I kind of think of the podcasting of, okay, if we do a 20-minute plus show, that's really a podcast. Whereas if we're doing a 5 or 10-minute thing on YouTube, that's generally more of a YouTube thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of like-minded with you on that, because one of the things I really like is, I think, especially with me and you, man, like, it's better when we do the long form stuff. We're wired for it, man, and it works good. And so, yeah, kind of the more longer form things on the audio side, so you can put us in your ear and be doing your thing. And then some of the shorter, maybe more timely stuff we can do on the YouTube side. So a little bit of Seahawkers pod for everybody.
And do we need a TikTok account? Because I'm hearing a lot about TikTok lately. Like maybe we need one of those too.
We could do it because I'm curious, how interested is G in the Seahawkers podcast? I think he might be into it. We should put it out there on TikTok, and then who knows? We can get Chinese intelligence listeners and all sorts of stuff. So
look, if the government's trying to censor it, it must be good, right?
Yeah, right. We'll just need to put out content all the way from the shortest of attention spans to the longest. And then we have our bases covered, right?
I mean, it's just the YouTube short stuff. It's just like the Instagram reels. It's all the short stuff. It's just that TikTok, I get the impression that it's just better at delivering that to you than maybe some of these other short form platforms.
If you say so. I haven't been on there because, I've got a reputation with the Chinese government that I'm trying to hide from. So.
Right. Okay. So maybe we can't put your stuff out there, but yeah,
that's okay. They can't find me out here. I'll be snowed under anyways until
it's never going to melt.
It's never going to melt.
Oh man. I don't know what's more disturbing, the idea of the Chinese government coming to get you, or the idea that the NFL has now approved NFL teams to play 2 Thursday night football games.
That is disgusting. Because the Thursday night game should just go away anyways. They talk about player safety out the butt all the time. They're going to make people wear the Guardian caps, right? Again, this offseason. But not when it comes to actual money. Let's keep getting them checks. We'll make sure the Thursday night games are...
Bezos is not going to be able to buy the Commanders if we don't have primetime Thursday night football matchups, Adam.
Is he outbidding Magic Johnson?
Is that happening?
Yeah, but you're right. They got to make Amazon's buck worth the bang, or bang worth the buck, however you want to put it. Yeah,
I like buck worth the bang. That's we should go with that.
Yeah, but it's gross. It's gross. I mean, greedy ass owners, man. We get mad at Lamar Jackson for wanting $250 million guaranteed dollars, and it's like, I'm not mad at Lamar. Like, yeah, when you watch the ilk of Dan Snyder rake it in, and now he's about to really cash in. Greedy ass owners. Gross.
Well, here's the problem. See, enough of us could say, well, Thursday night, yeah, it's football, but it's still that great of a matchup. So maybe I'll listen to the Manning cast because that's at least entertaining. And I think there just weren't enough people tuning in to where now they're saying, okay, because we saw it with some of the next step where I think they want to go. They haven't gone there yet. They want to be able to take a Sunday night or a Sunday matchup that's going to be a primetime game late in the season and then flex that into Thursday. And they did table that rule of being able to allow that. But when they're starting to talk about it and you see them make a rule pass like this one to where they're allowing teams to play multiple Thursdays, that's the next step, is that they want to take a matchup that was scheduled for an early Sunday, move it to Thursday, so that way it can be a game that you have to tune into late in the season because it has playoff implications.
Yeah, so it could hurt a lot of teams. And then also because of just the way that it's scheduled out. But there's going to be at some point some unfair advantage created of a mini buy for a team that shouldn't have had one when they really needed it, right? I mean, I could see the Rams just needing like a few more days to get Cooper Kupp healthy, and the NFL be like, well, flux that to Thursday then. Like, yeah, why not?
He wasn't going to play on Sunday anyway, but then he has the extra rest on the back end.
Exactly. So there's some crap in there I don't like. And then I think you talked about that's the next step. I think the next step past this, look out Saturday night. I think eventually the league's going to be putting games on Saturday. It's going to be all NFL all weekend because we can't get enough.
Yeah.
And just with Friday in there, just for the media to be able to spin things up. Just get a little break day in there.
Yeah. Well, you got your high school football games on Friday, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can do both.
That's
Lots
true.
do.
With your phone, you can watch the NFL while you're at your kids' Friday night football game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
but the NFL, they're looking to cash in everywhere that they can. And it gets to a point where it gets a little gross. Am I going to stop watching? Oh, hell no. Nope. I'm just as guilty as everybody else when it comes to this. I am complicit.
They shouldn't do that, but I'm still going to watch.
I haven't found the line yet. I really haven't.
No. Well, one line that the NFL did cross that I think you'd be a proponent of, though, is that players can now wear the number 0. I don't know about the number 00, but 0 now open up. Slippery slope, though. You know what's next? Negative numbers.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or triple digits. That could be a slip.
I don't know why 0 was ever outlawed to begin with. That's so weird. It's just another one of those weird NFL uniform rules. Like, how long did it take for us to be able to get, throwback unis, right? Like, no, can only have the one helmet. Can't do that. Like, why?
I don't know. Maybe there are a lot of math nerds that were like, well, 0 is not a real number anyway. It's the absence of number.
Yeah, 0 is the concept of 0 is something that separates our intelligence from other species, man. Like 0 is important. It's a big deal.
Well, the negative number should be the next step.
Hey, I don't care. They could put "he hate me" on the back of the jersey again, and I wouldn't care.
He hate me on Thursday Night Football with negative numbers, and I'm in.
Yeah. Personal foul. He hate me. Negative 42. 15-yard penalty. Automatic first down.
We're on our way.
See, I would have felt better about Bobby on the Rams if he'd have been negative 45.
What about negative 54?
That would have worked.
Because then it would have been like, the Bizarro Wagner.
That's true. Which it already was. So I don't know.
Well,
yeah, big changes though. You got to give it to the NFL. Like, don't do anything fun. Like, put in the 4th and 20 thing instead of the onside kick. Like, don't do that. No, heaven forbid. I mean, quality of the game. Like, let's make sure 0 is now wearable for the 15 players that are going to do it this year.
Who are the positions that are going to be most likely to wear it? I would say wide receiver and corner.
Long snapper, baby.
Yeah.
Long snapper. Yeah, who was the center for the Raiders in the 70s?
Wasn't it Jim Otto?
I can't think of the name like I said, for the life of me.
Yeah, it was Jim Otto. Yeah, that was the Raiders guy who wore 00.
Okay. Very good. Well, now we'll see if somebody gets the 00 out and does that. But yeah, I'm thinking more like long snapper than, you could see it at corner and wide out though. It's not a fast number though.
I think it could be. Quarterback wearing a 0? The only guys who can't wear 0.
You don't want your quarterback to be a 0, dude. Nope.
No, but they could.
Then you'd have Trey Lance.
Well, here's the thing. So offensive line limited to 50 through 79. Defensive line has 50 to 79 and 90 to 99. Linebackers can wear 0.
Okay.
I don't see anything here about long snappers. But I don't think 00 is an option like there is 0, because that would open up 2 whole numbers if you did 0 and 00.
Oh, yeah. Have all the zeros. Shoot, have a 000. Negative 000. That's what we need.
Kicker would be a stellar 0 number.
Ooh, I don't know, man. You missed that one big kick and your number 0. Man, the jokes could be endless. I think you got to be a low risk position. I think you're going to need to be a lineman or something.
The lineman can't do it.
I know. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
Oh, well.
They did not choose to ban the rugby scrum play.
Oh, right.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? I have big feelings about this.
You have big feelings?
Yeah, I have big feelings about this.
I have very indifferent feelings. Like, let teams do it if they think they can do it. I suppose they'll get to the point to where if the defensive option to stop that play ends up being really dangerous, then they're going to take away that play.
Do you think flying Chris Jones is really dangerous? Because that's what they tried in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Superman Chris Jones. It might be. I don't think it's all that dangerous. People talk about it like, it's a slow moving mush in comparison to a punt return. Are you kidding me? It's like, 1,000 times safer. It's 1,000 times safer than if the quarterback goes and stands in the pocket with, 270-pound edge rushers coming to take his head off, even with all the safety rules for the quarterback. I heard Florio talk about this, and Peter King, man.
Oh, Peter King.
Oh, my God.
It's not even a football play.
Oh, thank you for saying the exact words, because what do you mean it's not a football play? It's the original football play. Go back and look back when the game was invented in the 20s, 30s. You see the rugby scrum like that. It happened all the freaking time. How is it not a football play? It's literally one of the original football plays. I get maybe you don't like it. Maybe you find it to be boring. I love the idea that you can go up there and just physically dominate somebody else and pick up a third down. I think it's awesome. I want our team to employ it. I think Geno and his big butt gives us a perfect opportunity to get some guys behind there that put their hands right up on those ham hocks and push them right forward. I love it, man. More scrum. I'm in. Peter King's an idiot because it's the original football play.
I always hated that argument from Peter King because I agree with you. I think that he just doesn't like it and is looking for a reason to try and get rid of it. But I don't even understand why you necessarily wouldn't like it, because if in the age of wanting more offense on the field, it's a play like this that allows your offense to ultimately stay on the field more. If it's 4th and 2 or 3rd and 2, and you can just do this play to get 2 more yards, it allows more offense. It allows you to be out there longer, and it extends offensive drives. So why would that necessarily be bad if the idea around the game is seeing more offense?
Well, his big argument, other than it's not a football play, is the safety aspect. Oh, first time a big name quarterback gets hurt. Okay, fine. What's more dangerous for player safety? A running back takes the ball with a 7-yard head start, and a linebacker has a 7-yard head start as they collide together to pick up a 3rd and 1. You're telling me that's less dangerous than just the slow moving mass of humanity that is the rugby play? And how many quarterbacks are actually going to get injured doing this? You tuck the ball up like right up towards your chest with 2 hands.
Yeah.
And you just
get
slowly
behind
push
the big
forward.
dudes.
And then and you're at the back of the pile. I don't understand it. I really don't. I like it because it forces defense to have to become more physical. And like I said, original football play. I freaking love it.
The other argument that I've heard of taking this play out of the game, they always equate it to rugby. Well, in rugby, these guys, their necks get bent and you see them get scrunched up and injured. And I heard Pete Carroll being interviewed on this exact question, and Pete's like, yeah, but we're wearing helmets. So
right. And again, so we're talking about short yardage situations. So like I said, linebacker, running back, they're colliding hard. What about the receiver on a 3rd and 2 that they run a bubble and the corner's not fooled and he comes up and just smokes the dude while he's at a standstill?
Yeah.
Like we've seen some huge hits on that, right? Don't worry about that because it's a pass. We like passes. Can't have runs. Got to be passes.
But if you think about it, is that you can run this, then to have a whole nother down where you can pass it more.
There you go. I don't know. I don't understand the aversion to it. I think some people just feel like it's cheating, even though it's not.
Because the Eagles ran it so effectively.
Good for them. Stop them.
The only other aspect to it was that it used to be a rule that you couldn't push your teammates. And I think they took that rule out of the game. So where you're not allowed to pull a teammate, but you can push them. And taking that out of the game too, I feel like, gosh, there's so many of those Marshawn Lynch runs where he would run into the pile and be 10 yards down the field and the defense would stop him up. But then, his teammates would come up from behind him and push him the other 5 yards and they'd be in the end zone. Like, you want to take that play out of the game? That doesn't make sense to me.
I don't get it. I'm trying to be more careful with my words overall. I said Peter King was an idiot. That was wrong. Peter King's take on this issue is he's a very smart writer and a good writer. And I have a lot of respect for him in his career.
An idiotic take by a really smart guy.
By a really smart, connected dude. So I just wanted to clean that up.
Okay, good.
But you're right. Why would you want to take that out of the game? It's just, why does this game have to become a finesse-oriented Rams Chiefs on Monday night in Mexico City type game? Why does every game have to be that? Defense optional, no big hits. I mean, just turn it into 9-on-9 and just make it that sort of thing.
And the player safety aspect of it, I didn't necessarily buy the quarterback thing. It was more, if we hear guys from that interior, the defensive line, offensive line, saying that, when we get into these situations, you end up seeing a lot more injuries. I'd like to see where the stats are on that. But if it's those guys that are ultimately getting more injured because of that play, then maybe there's something to talk about.
How are they more susceptible to injury, the linemen, either defensive or offensively, on that play as opposed to any other run play?
Unless the defensive option to stopping it is, I don't like diving at dude's knees. And I don't know. Sure.
And I'd be cool with them taking that out of the game if that's where it goes. Like, no, we can't be doing that. Like, let's be smart about this. But I can't imagine there's one offensive lineman that is like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I hate that. Every offensive lineman's like, yeah, man.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's run this play on first down and see how many yards we can get.
Let's run it every play, right? That's their mentality. I don't think you're going to see a lot of pushback on that.
Well, what do you say we welcome some new members of the flock? We got a lot of new folks that came in over these past 2 weeks, and
exciting.
Yeah, we got to thank them. We got to thank our executive producers, DCH, Brian Shaw, and Rebecca Christensen.
Yeah, absolutely. We all know that they would never wear the number 0 because they're not zeros. They're indeed heroes.
But maybe they have that kind of zero confidence. Like, yes, I'm wearing the number 0, but it's because I have that confidence to know that I am above this number, and I just exude that type of confidence.
Interesting. So the 0, if you wear the 0 like that with that sort of confidence, it's a 0 catfish given move. That's what that is. You're right.
I think so. I think that's why I think defensive backs would be a good number for them, because hey, one play, thinking about it, one play
zero,
at a time.
the eraser,
zero memory of what happened on the previous play.
You're right, Brandon. I thought it needed to be a long snapper, but I think you're right. I think it needs to be a corner or defensive back of some type. You're right. That's what that number's made for.
I'm glad we worked through that.
Yeah, me too. This is why all these new flockers have joined the flock right here. Is quality conversation like this.
Brant Dennehy is in at $3 a month. Welcome to the flock to Brant.
Appreciate it, bud, for sure.
We got $60 via Venmo. Came into @Hawkra. Coming from Randy Horner down there in California, saying, I am restructuring our social contract and cutting out your agent, Patreon. I propose a raise from $3 to $5 a month on a 1-year deal, and I'm willing to make this a fully guaranteed contract by paying annually. I realize this isn't top tier money. I'm looking for top tier content at a team friendly price. I believe this gives us both the greatest chance to succeed. It's amazing what we can accomplish when no one cares who gets the credit.
Oh my God, Randy, that was top notch, man. Not surprising either. He's been a big proponent in the comments on some of the YouTube stuff, a big supporter. And look, I appreciate the fact that, he locked us down on guaranteed money. I mean, it could be any week now where one of us blows out our voice and we just can't do this anymore. Like, it's a dangerous profession.
That's why, Randy, I like to think of this as a contract that pays us for what we achieved in the previous year, as opposed to paying us for what we will accomplish in the upcoming year.
Wait, did Randy just give us a prove it deal?
Maybe.
Perfect. I'm in. I bet on me.
Ryan Eddy came in at $12 a month. Welcome to the flock to Ryan.
Appreciate it, man. I hope we don't lose all the Ryans with Ryan Neal leaving the team.
Oh, yeah. We got to hold on to the Ryans.
We got good Ryans.
Marty Gately in at $20.50 Australian per month, I believe. That's to get into the podcast Ring of Honor group on Facebook. So welcome to Marty.
Heck yeah. Appreciate that, Marty. You're going to enjoy the Ring of Honor. Looks like the Discord's been taking off a little bit too. Like I just noticed that because you know how up I am on such things.
Right. No, I tend to hold things down in the Discord. That's generally where I've been spending a lot of my time.
Appreciate it.
But really, Discord that's the game day experience is where we tend to do the live Discord chat. But it's been great in this off season, especially when there's free agency deals. You hear a lot of the news coming through there. I know Josh DeHuman is big into putting the news up when it comes through. So good job to Josh.
Heck yeah. Daniel
Abbott in at a raise from Daniel from $4.50 to $11.50 in the English pounds. Saying, hi, guys, I canceled a few subscriptions that I wasn't using, so I thought, what better way to reinvest that money than to increase my donation to $12.12. Love the show, as always. The extra content has been great. Go Hawks, from Dan.
Dude, appreciate it, man. Like we always say, value for value. And if you're enjoying all the new stuff that we're trying to accomplish here, I'm really glad that you were able to, match that up. That value for you. So dollar-wise, it's awesome. Appreciate it a ton.
Carla Smith coming in for the annual $60 donation. So thank you to Carla. I recognize that name. So that might be a re-up. Thanks to Carla.
Always appreciate Carla for sure. That's awesome, man.
And Luke Sim giving us a raise in the Australian dollars from $7 to $8.50. So thanks to Luke.
I wonder if Australian dollars has been hit with as much inflation as American dollars.
That feels like an inflation raise. Like now you can afford an egg like a week.
Look, I had a homemade egg McMuffin this morning for breakfast, and I felt like a 1%er. I did.
It's good. It's good to feel that way.
I might put a bid in on the Commanders now. I'm that rich.
Hey, we got Hector Mark back in the fold, so I think that can put you over the top on your bid on the Commanders. So Hector back into the Ring of Honor with $12 a month. Welcome back, Hector.
Appreciate it, man. Hector's a staple. It was hard having him gone, really.
Well, shoot, Hector's been with the show probably forever. Since the first year, because we went. Was it the NFC? I think it was the NFC Championship game at the Packers. Did I go to that game? With Hector?
I can't remember, dude. That gets too long ago. I'm way too many beers past that one. Yeah. I've killed too many brain cells.
We've got Sanka writing in from Germany. Says, hi, it's the umlaut guy from Germany. Sadly, I wasn't able to get tickets for the Seahawks game in Germany, but who did without selling their first child? Yeah. Nevertheless, it was still a very exciting season. I feel like right now might be the most interesting time with the most positive developments since the LOB days. A year ago, we expected a losing season with a long way to go after trading Russ, but Pete and John turned it into a playoff season. We're now heading into the next season with talented young players, cap space, a favorable Geno contract, and lots of draft capital. Pete and John exceeded my expectations so much within this last year that I can't help but have confidence in their offseason approach. While I do understand everyone who is concerned about the run defense and now losing Al Woods while missing a big tackle in the middle, on the other hand, they are completely remodeling the front seven group, which was probably our biggest weakness last season. This tells me they are aware of it and working on it. Now, given the ability Pete and John have shown, the state of the rest of the team, and the huge draft capital to fix holes on both sides of the ball, I think it's a great time to be a Seahawks fan. Really look forward to the season. Keep up the great work, and go Hawks.
Hey, go Hawks, dude. That was a great email because, just painting that full picture of where our expectations were at this point last year, what Pete and John were able to do, and what Geno was able to do, all of that, right? And then the excitement that now piggybacks into this offseason, especially with Russ doing us the solid that he did, and getting us that, top 5 pick that we all get to argue about.
Wish it would have been a top 3 pick. Russ could have lost that last game and, done us a solid that way, but
sure.
Unfortunately.
Somehow I'll get over it. But it's hard to temper the expectations though. And that's something I keep trying to do is like, they hit all these home runs last year.
Yeah.
What are the odds that they're going to hit this many home runs again this year? That's so improbable to do back to back. It's so hard to do. So I'm trying to manage that expectation of where the team goes this offseason.
Even if it's only half of what they did last season, like I don't think you can project drafting 2 starting tackles and a top corner.
Yeah.
It's just so many of
and
those
then
moves.
Contributors, and then other contributors all along the board too.
Yeah, it's tough to do. It's going to be tough to replicate that, but they do have the draft capital and the draft positioning to be able to do that if they make good decisions. So, yeah, it's hard not to be optimistic.
I bet John Schneider feels like this upcoming draft is like attending a party with just a ton of strippers and blow. Like he's just having the best time ever.
You've been to a lot of those parties?
Oh yeah, every other weekend. You bet. Out here in Phillipsburg, Montana. Yeah, that's where we get down that way for sure. But you know what I'm getting at, man. Like
I now know what your ideal party is. I guess we've just never done that.
Well, if I have to put a ring on Brittany's finger, then I guess you know how the bachelor party is gonna have to go. So
I might need some leads on how to procure those elements of the party because I don't have a lot of experience. But
good save, buddy. You never know when the wife's listening. Good job.
Through those things, now that we have the listening audience to know that we need help there. Here we go.
Here we go.
Guess that's what we're doing.
It was more a metaphor, but I guess if it's now really happening, then sure. Yeah. Kid in the candy store might have been a more appropriate one. I just thought strippers and blow was funnier.
Yeah. Kid in the candy store. That one I definitely have familiarity with.
And we actually have a killer candy store in Phillipsburg. It's like world famous. It's amazing.
I was just in Missoula and we went to the cookie shop and we had the buy 12, get 5 free because they have a buy 6, get 2 free, which, that's a pretty solid option because if you're buying 6, you throw on a couple. But the buy 12, get 5 free is enticing because it's like, oh, yeah, but if I was going to get 8, but then I only have to get 4 more and then I get 5 free cookies.
Right. Yeah. Like a whole nother third again more over the 12. Like and really, who has ever been like, damn, I just have too many cookies. Well, I guess maybe if you've had a kid in the Girl Scouts, maybe you feel that way, but I don't know.
You do, but this place, it has so much variety. They have the staples, chocolate chip, peanut butter, but they have a Twix cookie. They have a s'mores cookie, which it actually, so it's like a chocolate chip cookie with a marshmallow, and then it has a graham, like half of a graham cracker smashed down on top to squish down the marshmallow. They had a key lime pie cookie, no, key lime cheesecake cookie that was outstanding. Ooh. If you go to Missoula, you gotta check out the cookie place.
Okay. So now everybody knows that things that get me excited, strippers and blow, and for Brandon, it's cookies. That was maybe the most excited he's been throughout the whole podcast.
There it is. If
what's a little more wholesome? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. My birthday's coming up in a couple weeks. Cookies.
Okay. Cookies it is. All right.
On to do better and better at life.
All right, man. I do better this week, Brandon, is for many of the captains in industries and big employers and their lackey lapdog, the Wall Street Journal. I saw this article the other day, and it's just anti-freedom, and it pisses me off. So basically, the title is Work from Home Era Ends for Millions of Americans. And so you read through the article, and you hear guys like, Zuckerberg and all these other people talking about, well, if people work from home, they're not quite as productive and the creativity is stifled. And like basically the number has gone from 60% of businesses reporting that they don't have anybody that works from home, now back up to like 75%. Because heaven forbid you allow people to work wherever they would like to work at the remote job that they can easily do from the comfort of their own home and manage their own time without, your boss coming around and asking for, those freaking TP reports or whatever the heck it is that they're always after you for. It's just anti-freedom. Just let people be. It worked out fine. Guess what happened when everybody started working at home? Nothing. Everything still went along, even with the pandemic going on. You're telling me we can't continue to do this? Allow people to live where they want to live? Not have to live in these god-awful urban centers. They can actually live out in the country and have a life. Wall Street Journal and all of these captains of industry for taking the choice for you away to be at home and enjoy your life. Do better.
I like the TP reports. I think they were TPS reports, weren't they?
I don't remember. I was excited to get at least 2 of the 3 letters in the acronym out. Like
you got 2 out of the 3, and that ain't bad.
Well, because as you start saying it, you're like, oh, I don't know if I remember this. Well, better wing it.
Yeah. It is weird that it's the pendulum swinging back the other way again. And because the other argument was, well, if people aren't working at home, then they aren't distracted by all of the water cooler conversations at work, and they aren't distracted by the constant meetings that end up happening impromptu style around the office. And now it's like, oh, well, the people are screwing off and not getting their work done because they're not in the office.
I'm going to tell you straight up, there are 2 big reasons for this that I believe. The first is it's just simply control. They just don't have the same sort of control over you when you're not in the office, and it drives them crazy. They want to control your waking moments in your little freaking cubicle. It's ridiculous. The second thing is most of these are really large companies, right?
Yeah.
And they've invested in these massive buildings and massive office spaces. And maybe that's just one, or maybe it's tons of little offices all over the country, right? And they have to be able to justify spending all that money on the giant phallic building in the middle of the city with their company name on it to make them feel good. They have to justify having that building by making sure that you're there inside of it, instead of saving all that money on the overhead and letting people work from home. No. We have to have the big shiny building so that I look cool. It's an ego thing. Ego and control. Screw those guys. They probably have 5 eggs a day.
Probably.
Yeah.
Jerks. Well, someone who might be a 5-egger a day guy might do better this week. Mike Tannenbaum. I don't know if you saw his mock draft here recently.
I heard a little about it.
Yeah, Mike Tannenbaum, ESPN. He decided to mock Hendon Hooker to the Seahawks at the 5th overall pick. And he even recognizes how off the wall and out of the blue this has come, because you haven't seen Hendon Hooker mocked in, I don't know, the top 20 anywhere, let alone the top 5. And Mike says, okay, this one might raise some eyebrows, but hear me out. I think Hooker is really underscouted right now, largely because he's coming off the torn ACL on his left knee, but I love his strong arm and 6'3" frame. Before the injury, Hooker looked great for the Vols. He led the nation in yards per attempt, 9.5, threw 2 interceptions over 11 starts, and was a top 10 passer in terms of completion percentage, 69.6. I see a potential franchise quarterback and someone who can lead an offense. Go watch his performance against Alabama if you disagree. It's interesting because he puts all these little nuggets of stats in here, right? The yards per attempt. Oh, yeah, 9.5. That's pretty good. Oh, only 2 interceptions. Huh? How about that? Oh, and the completion percentage, almost 70%. That's really good. And then I'm thinking, I wonder who Mike Tannenbaum is represented by in terms of his agency. And I wonder who Hendon Hooker is represented by in his agency, because whenever I see something out of the left field, just out of left field, kind of nonsense through the media, my go-to thing is to check out to see who they're represented by.
Follow the money, right?
What do you know? Hendon Hooker represented by CAA, just like Mike Tannenbaum. So if you're wondering where some of the silly stuff comes during draft season, and oh, hey, Mike, you're up for a contract renewal here pretty soon. And, Hendon is, he's not really getting the kind of love that we'd like to see him get in the media. These are really good stats by him. I don't know. Hey, Mike, I don't know why Hendon Hooker isn't talked about more, but maybe this is something that you could put out here in one of your mock drafts coming up. Just use these nuggets. I don't care what team you put him to, but there's got to be some team in the top 10 that needs a quarterback that would really fit, that has, that these numbers would just tie real well to him. Maybe you could see something, have some interest in doing something like that. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, my contract negotiation is coming up here pretty soon. That's a really good idea. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's exactly what happened, but I'm saying it kind of looks like that's what happened. So Mike Tannenbaum, do better.
Let me guess. You're saying that old Mikey didn't do the research on his own to come up with those stats, that maybe that came to him in an email on him a certain morning. Is that kind of where you think that is?
Hard, difficult stats to find, but it seems interesting that all of a sudden,
At least he got the right quarterback of the group that are not named Stroud as maybe, he should be higher up, Again, if they ended up taking Hooker at 20, I still wouldn't even be that mad.
Right.
I wouldn't. I don't want them to. I'd like it if they did something else. But him talking up Hooker, I wonder, like you said, probably just to push up the draft stock if he can, right? If he can move the needle. But I don't know that he does. Although it did work. I saw this topic on McAfee. We're talking about it. Like it got it out there.
And then people start thinking, well, gee, maybe Hendon Hooker is a better option than Anthony Richardson. And maybe we should mock him ahead of Richardson more often, because it does. When a name.
But he's 25, Brandon.
He's so old. He's so old.
You might only get 10 years out of him if he even hits.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, the he's too old to play thing. That one drives me crazy.
I can understand it more. Like you probably don't want a 25-year-old running back, but maybe that wouldn't be that big of a deal either, because he's probably only going to play 4 years for you anyway.
Yeah. And on top of that, don't you want him more physically developed to take the pounding? I kind of like that.
Because I asked Joe DeLeon when I interviewed him a few weeks ago, why would you not necessarily want a guy who's 24, 25? And it comes down to being a developmental type player. Sure, if you're NFL ready at 25 and could come in and play, great. But it's more of you don't see as much upside. And I think you see this across other sports too. Like a 25-year-old in baseball isn't going to come in and be a Hall of Famer usually. Usually if he's a Hall of Fame player, he's going to come in as a 19, 20-year-old and be amazing for 20 years of his career. And so I think it's similar in baseball, is that guys who come in younger, it's because they haven't quite fully developed. They're going to develop into people who are amazing, whereas 25-year-old, they're at the top of their talent developmentally, I suppose.
I guess I'm just surprised that the Hall of Fame still exists for MLB. I figured they'd run out of money and had to shut the doors of the Hall of Fame just to, try to make it through another season without any fans. So
they did the pitch clock thing. You can watch a baseball game now in almost 2 hours.
I mean, sure. If you got 2 hours to, I don't know, light on fire, you could do that. Sure. Yeah.
Happy start of the baseball season, sports fans. You can email Adam Emmert, Adam@SeahawkersPodcast.com.
Absolutely. I will take shots at baseball all day, every day. That ancient, slow, boring ass game.
Yeah. Turn off all of the sports fans that, I don't know, like listening to sports and sports talk, and tell them how their sport doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It hasn't mattered for 10 years. So congratulations for finally figuring out that your game is slow as balls.
Tune in next week as we talk about soccer. On to Better at Life.
You mean boring hockey? Yeah. All right, man. My Better at Life than Skip Bayless this week is for all the dudes that have jumped in and helped me out in the comment sections of some of these new videos that I've been putting out. I've taken a little bit of heat, especially on the last one. Like I said, the tone wasn't good. Maybe came in a little hot.
A moderate amount of heat.
But I just saying, there's a ton of people that have had my back, man. And I just appreciate all you little flockers, man. And if you're not in the flock, you ought to get in, because clearly you belong. We just have great listeners, man. And I'm so appreciative of them and, supporting us on growing this thing. And you guys are all better at life than Skip Bayless. I love you guys.
The flock is better at life. Got my Better at Life this week, which is Bobby Wagner for coming back to Seattle. Not holding any grudges against the former regime that allowed him to go and wear his reverse number in a dirty Rams uniform. No, he allowed that to be set aside. He came back for a reasonable contract that I think many fans can get behind. And he's coming back to help close out his career the way it should, where it started, in Seattle. And I hope that, because I think he was doing a little bit of the championship chasing by going to LA, because, they were coming off a Super Bowl season. And he probably thought that, hey, why not chase another ring, since it wasn't looking like after a Russell Wilson trade that might not be possible in Seattle. I still think he would have come back and played in Seattle last year, but has the opportunity to go there. And now I think it does. It looks a whole lot better in terms of championship prospects here in Seattle than it does down with the stupid LA Rams. So welcome back, Bobby. I'm glad you're back. You are better at life than Skip Bayless.
You know, I find it entertaining. How many articles have you seen since Bobby came back that have the headline of some sort of, oh, the Seahawks always bring all their people back and they're just better at it than everybody else? Like, man, it must have been a slow news week because there had to have been 50 of those stories, 80 of those stories. I mean, it was incredible. I think most teams kind of bring back a lot of their great players over time, whether it's through the media and things like that. Now, I'm not trying to poop on the Seahawks and the relationships they build and all that stuff. I do think they do an amazing job of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was a little, I don't know, overblown over the last couple of weeks.
Does it happen more here than other places?
If you read the articles, it does.
I suppose there's a way to figure it out statistically, right? That could be done.
Yeah. You could either try to figure that out or watch a baseball game, whichever way you'd like to waste your time. Go about it.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.